She took what was his and dared him to fight back, confident her power and the HOA's rules would protect her. But Karen underestimated Jonathan. He had proof that would change everything. When the truth came out, the consequences were more shocking than anyone expected. Let's start from the beginning. Jonathan Miller's home was a picture of suburban bliss. The neatly trimmed lawn, colorful flower beds lining the path, and the sound of children laughing in the backyard created an atmosphere of warmth and family pride. Among all the small treasures that made his house feel like home, one held a particularly special place: his old lawnmower, a sturdy, reliable machine handed down from his father. It wasn't just a tool, but a cherished link to the past. Each time he used it, Jonathan was reminded of summers spent mowing with his dad, laughing and bonding over shared tasks. But that morning, something was wrong. Stepping out to cut the grass, Jonathan noticed the lawnmower wasn't in its usual spot. At first, he thought his children might have moved it, so he searched the yard, the shed, and even the garage. Nothing. The mower had vanished. Maybe I just misplaced it, he thought, although a strange unease had already begun to settle in his chest. Jonathan decided to ask his neighbors if they had seen anything unusual. He made his way door to door, hoping for a lead. "Sorry, Jonathan. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary," one neighbor said with a sympathetic shrug. Others echoed the same sentiment. Each conversation left him feeling more unsettled. How could something like this happen in our quiet neighborhood? He wondered as he walked back to his home. Sitting at the kitchen table, Jonathan replayed recent events in his mind, trying to piece together any clue. Then it hit him. A conversation from just a few days ago. His neighbor Karen, infamous for her sharp tongue and habit of meddling, had made a pointed comment about his mower. "You should really get rid of that old thing," she had said with a condescending tone. "It's noisy and honestly ruins the aesthetic of the neighborhood." At the time, Jonathan had laughed it off, chalking it up to Karen's usual complaints. But now, the memory felt far more sinister. Determined to get answers, Jonathan marched over to Karen's house. Her property, as always, was meticulously maintained, every shrub trimmed with an almost obsessive precision. It reflected Karen herself, strict, controlling, and always concerned with appearances. Jonathan knocked on the door, his heart pounding with a mix of anger and nervousness. Karen answered quickly, her face betraying mild annoyance. "Jonathan, what can I do for you?" she asked, crossing her arms in a gesture that was anything but welcoming. "Hi, Karen," he began, keeping his tone polite. "I just wanted to ask if you've seen my lawnmower. It's gone missing, and I thought maybe you noticed something unusual." Karen's lips curled into a smirk, and she let out a soft laugh. "A lawnmower? No, can't say I've seen one. Maybe it's time you bought a new one. Something that fits the standards of the neighborhood." Her words stung, laced with the kind of passive-aggressive superiority Jonathan had come to expect from her. "All right," Jonathan replied, his voice steady despite the frustration bubbling inside. "If you hear anything, please let me know." As he turned to leave, something caught his eye. Peering into Karen's backyard, he froze. There, partially obscured by a bush, was his lawnmower. The bright red machine was unmistakable, its familiar scratches and dents glaring back at him like a beacon. His breath caught in his throat. It was his mower. He was sure of it. Jonathan walked back to his house in a daze, a storm of emotions raging within him: anger, disbelief, and a growing determination to act. Karen's smug dismissal replayed in his mind, fueling his resolve. "This isn't over," he muttered, staring out the kitchen window at the yard that now felt incomplete. Whatever it took, he would get his lawnmower back. But how? That was the question he needed to answer. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the neighborhood, Jonathan paced his living room, wrestling with his frustration. His thoughts kept circling back to the mower he'd seen in Karen's yard. It was his, he was sure of it. The scratches, the slight dent on the handle, even the faded paint. It all matched perfectly. How could she possibly deny it? The thought of confronting her made his chest tighten, but he knew he couldn't let this go. With a deep breath, Jonathan stepped outside and made his way to Karen's house. The quiet streets and dim streetlights created an almost surreal calm, a sharp contrast to the storm of emotions brewing within him. Reaching her front door, he hesitated for a moment, then knocked firmly. The door opened just a crack, revealing Karen's sharp eyes peering out suspiciously. When she saw Jonathan, her expression shifted to a look of forced politeness. "Jonathan," she said, her voice tinged with exasperation, "what brings you here this late?" Straightening his back, Jonathan met her gaze. "Karen, I need to talk to you about my lawnmower," he began, his tone steady but firm. "The red one, it's sitting in your yard. That's my mower." Karen blinked, her face a mask of feigned confusion. "Your mower?" "Jonathan, I don't know what you're talking about. That mower is mine. I bought it at a yard sale last weekend," she replied, her voice dripping with nonchalance. Jonathan's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Karen, I know it's mine. I've had it for years. There's no way you just happened to buy one that looks exactly like it, with the same scratches and wear marks." Karen's expression hardened, and her voice grew sharper. "Do you have proof? Because if you don't, you can't just go around accusing people of stealing. That's slander, Jonathan, and I won't tolerate it." Jonathan's frustration boiled over, his voice rising despite his efforts to stay calm. "Karen, you and I both know the truth. Just admit it and give it back." But Karen stood her ground, her arms crossed and her eyes narrowed. "If you keep this up," she snapped, "I'll have no choice but to involve the authorities. I won't have you harassing me over something that's clearly not yours." The words hit Jonathan like a slap in the face. How could she turn the situation around so blatantly? Without another word, he turned and walked away, his mind racing. He felt powerless, but he wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Back at home, Jonathan sat in his kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the silence. He replayed the confrontation in his mind, anger and determination mingling in his chest. Karen's denial had made one thing clear. He needed evidence. Real, undeniable proof. And then it struck him. The security cameras. Jonathan had recently installed a basic camera system on his front porch, mainly as a precaution after hearing about petty thefts in the area. He hadn't thought much of it since, but now it might be the key to solving this whole ordeal. Quickly, he powered up his laptop and logged into the camera feed, scrolling back through the footage from the past few days. Hours seemed to pass as he scanned the videos, his eyes glued to the screen. Then, finally, he saw it. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. 2 nights ago. There, in the grainy black and white footage, was Karen, glancing around nervously as she rolled his lawnmower through the gate and into her yard. Jonathan paused the video, his heart pounding as he stared at the undeniable proof. Relief washed over him, but it was quickly followed by a renewed sense of purpose. He had what he needed. Karen could no longer deny the truth. Closing his laptop, Jonathan leaned back in his chair, a small smile creeping onto his face. For the first time all day, he felt a glimmer of hope. Justice was within reach, and he was ready to fight for it. Armed with the video evidence, Jonathan felt a renewed sense of determination. Early the next morning, he brought his proof to the police station, confident that justice would finally be served. Officer Jenkins reviewed the footage, nodding thoughtfully. "This does look compelling," he said. "We'll accompany you to your neighbor's house and sort this out." When the officers arrived at Karen's door, she greeted them with her usual air of defiance. The moment she saw Jonathan, her tone shifted to indignation. "What's this about?" she demanded. "Ma'am," Jenkins began, "Jonathan has provided evidence suggesting the lawnmower in your yard belongs to him. We need to clarify the situation." Karen didn't miss a beat. "That's ridiculous. That mower is mine. I bought it at a yard sale. And those cameras he used, they're a violation of HOA rules. He's been spying on me." Her voice grew louder, drawing the attention of curious neighbors. Jonathan interjected, struggling to keep calm. "Karen, the video clearly shows you taking my mower. Just admit it." But Karen doubled down, insisting her innocence. "He's harassing me, and I won't stand for it." As the situation escalated, Jerry Taylor, the president of the HOA, arrived. Karen wasted no time roping him into the dispute, claiming Jonathan's cameras were against community guidelines. Jerry sided with her immediately. "Mr. Miller, unauthorized cameras are a serious infraction. I'll be issuing a fine." Jonathan was stunned. Instead of addressing the theft, the focus shifted to punishing him for protecting his property. The officers, without clear serial numbers or additional evidence, suggested he pursue the matter legally. Frustrated and defeated, Jonathan returned home, feeling as though the entire system was stacked against him. That evening, a knock on his door brought an unexpected ally, Mr. Benson, a retired veteran and longtime neighbor. "I saw what happened today," Benson said. "This isn't the first time Karen and Jerry have pulled something like this. You don't have to fight them alone." Jonathan hesitated. "But how can I win against them? Even with the video, they're twisting everything." Benson smiled knowingly. "I've dealt with HOA bullies before. Let me connect you with a lawyer who knows how to handle people like this. Together, we'll show them they're not above the rules." For the first time in days, Jonathan felt a glimmer of hope. With Benson's support, he realized he wasn't fighting this battle alone. He was ready to take the next step, no matter how tough the road ahead might be. With Mr. Benson's guidance and the support of a determined lawyer, Jonathan threw himself into building an airtight case. Every detail mattered. The video recording, already a cornerstone of his evidence, was supplemented by old receipts proving his ownership of the lawnmower. Neighbors who had seen Karen with the stolen mower agreed to provide statements, and even small details, like the unique scratches on the mower, were documented meticulously. Jonathan's kitchen turned into a war room. Papers, notes, and a timeline of events were spread across the table, a testament to the uphill battle he was preparing to fight. Despite the stress, he felt a sense of empowerment. He wasn't just reclaiming his property, he was standing up for fairness, not just for himself, but for everyone in the neighborhood who had been wronged by Karen and the HOA. Once everything was ready, Jonathan and Benson decided it was time to take the matter public. They arranged a neighborhood meeting under the guise of addressing general HOA concerns. The community gathered in the local park, an idyllic setting with chirping birds and a gentle breeze that belied the tension in the air. The turnout was larger than expected. Curiosity and whispers about the conflict had spread quickly. Jerry Taylor opened the meeting, exuding his usual authority, but Jonathan soon took the floor. His voice was calm but firm as he began recounting his ordeal. "Many of you know about the incident with my lawnmower," he started, glancing around at the crowd. "I've been accused, fined, and dismissed, but today I'm here to present the truth." Karen, seated at the front with a smug expression, scoffed audibly. "Oh, this should be good," she muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Jonathan ignored her and gestured to a screen set up for the occasion. The video played, showing Karen dragging the mower through the gate late at night. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the undeniable evidence unfolded before their eyes. Karen's face, usually a picture of confidence, turned pale. "That's not real," she stammered, standing abruptly. "It's obviously edited. He's trying to frame me." Jonathan calmly addressed the crowd. "This video is time-stamped and unaltered, and it's not just the video. I have receipts proving my ownership, and neighbors who witnessed Karen with the mower have come forward as well." As murmurs of support for Jonathan grew louder, Karen's protests became increasingly desperate, but her words held little weight against the mounting evidence. Even Jerry Taylor, who had been steadfast in his support of Karen, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, realizing the tide was turning. Finally, Officer Jenkins, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "This video and supporting documentation meet the requirements for a formal report. Karen will need to discuss this further at the station." Karen sat down, her defiance replaced by a sullen silence. The crowd, emboldened by Jonathan's courage, began to voice their own frustrations with Karen and the HOA. It was clear her influence was waning. In the days that followed, the police confirmed the validity of Jonathan's evidence. Karen was ordered to return the lawnmower, pay a fine for filing false accusations, and compensate Jonathan for the stress and damages caused. The HOA also faced scrutiny for their handling of the situation, with Jerry Taylor stepping down amid growing backlash. Jonathan's victory wasn't just about a lawnmower, it was a message. Standing on his now trimmed lawn, watching his children play, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had shown that even in the face of unfairness, persistence and truth could prevail. And in that moment, the neighborhood felt a little brighter, a little fairer, and a lot more united. The fallout from Jonathan's confrontation with Karen sent ripples through the neighborhood. Emboldened by his stand, other residents came forward with their own grievances against Karen and the HOA. Complaints of unfair treatment and unchecked authority piled up, forcing the HOA into damage control. Under mounting pressure, Jerry Taylor resigned as president, leaving the community to chart a new path. With Karen's influence diminished, the neighborhood rallied to implement reforms. New rules ensured transparency in HOA operations and limited the power of any single individual. The air of tension that had once gripped the community began to lift, replaced by a sense of unity and purpose. Jonathan's fight had inspired change far beyond reclaiming his mower. When his lawnmower was finally returned, Jonathan couldn't help but smile. It was more than just a tool. It symbolized his victory and the perseverance it took to achieve it. On a bright morning, he fired it up and began cutting the grass. The familiar hum filled the air as neat stripes formed across his yard. His children laughed and played nearby, their voices a sweet reminder of everything he had fought to protect. Neighbors passed by, some stopping to thank him for standing up for what was right. Jonathan waved back humbly, feeling a quiet pride. He hadn't just reclaimed his property, he had shown that fairness and persistence could prevail, even against overwhelming odds. As he stood admiring his freshly mowed lawn, Jonathan felt a deep satisfaction. His story had proven one thing: no one is above the rules, and justice is always worth fighting for.